think what we're going to do is each of us have hopefully got 2 changes or new things we'd like to see for 4th edition. So we may have some crossover, that's fine, because we'll have some discussion with it anyway, so that's completely fine. I will start with one, purely because I think it's quite a big one, and some other people either might have crossover or you can each kind of have your thoughts on it anyway. So the first one I have written down, and I know it's a very divisive thing with Sigmar, so you probably might know what I'm going to say here.
Double turn.
And that's the double turns.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily want to get rid of it. I would rather alter it to make it slightly less ridiculous. And I say this because even the hardiest of Sigmar players that love the double turn, I will play against them. They will be double turned for the entirety of the game, and they will be really, really annoyed, and they will say, I hate this game, all of that sort of stuff. And then a week later, they're like, oh no, I love it. But I think if you kind of tame it a bit, so what I would probably do is maybe make it so that you have like a +1 or something like that. And do it that way, just so it kind of alters the randomness slightly, so that you can come back slightly more rather than just relying on the tie. You've got a little bit of a better chance, and it might just level it out a little bit.
I think it's one of those things where it's a bigger conversation topic than it should be, because it's a thorn in the side. And I think whether there was a mechanism to make it more difficult to double turn, or even if there was a safety feature, like a player could overrule in a double turn situation, like once per game, just to kind of bring it back. I think that's what it is, but it seems as it is, it's still too much of a thorn in the side of a lot of players. So I do agree it should be tweaked, but like you say, maybe not completely removed.
I think it is a nice feature for Sigmar. It's very unique to Sigmar, and I agree with people that say we should keep it and not completely scrap it. But like you say, I'd like to see it altered.
Yeah,
cool.
Definitely.
Well, I'm glad we had a little chat about that one, because I know for a fact that it's going to be one of the big discussion points for most people about whether most of my friends that I know who have been put off Sigmar, it's because of the double turn. So I figured it's definitely one to bring up to have a chat about at the very least. Si, let's go on to you. What is your first change or new thing that you'd like to bring into 4th edition?
So for 4th edition, one of the things I like is what they've done with 40k with Combat Patrol. So something along the same lines for Vanguard. Pre-made, balanced, smaller armies, along the lines of Combat Patrol, where if you wanted to just try an army out, you could just buy that box. It's balanced, it's ready to go. Similar rule set, or the same rule set, depending on what they do with both. And you've got that Vanguard, that smaller game. Yeah. Not so much a smaller game, but you know what I mean? It's similar to Combat Patrol. And plus, for new players as well, if they wanted to try a certain faction, they could pick up the Vanguard box. They've got the balance list ready to go. Give it a try. If they don't like it, fair enough. But if they do, they can then expand from there into a full army. So something along the lines of Combat Patrol, but for Age of Sigmar 4th edition, I think it'd be ideal for Vanguard. And then the other one was something to do with terrain, really. There's so many nice terrain sets for Age of Sigmar. Like with Fantasy, Old World, it's rank and flank, isn't it? You don't have a lot of terrain. You don't want a lot of terrain.
No.
But for Age of Sigmar, you could argue it's like 40k, the more terrain, the better the game. You don't want to overdo it, but with so many nice terrain kits, I think there just should be some more terrain rules. Not necessarily more complicated rules, but more terrain rules where you get the benefit of using different types of terrain. Just the odd bit of a special rule here and there. So if you're holding a certain piece of terrain, you get a slight benefit from doing that, and you're encouraged to go for that terrain rather than just avoid it or just treat it as any old type of terrain, no matter what it is on the table.
Well, I think add to the narrative.
Pardon?
Sorry, I thought over you. I agree, they're lovely kits. I think that can add to the narrative of the game as well. If it's you're not just fighting over some rocks and some trees, you're fighting over the lost shrine of Bel Sharamoth or something.
Yeah, Azerite ruins or something like that. Yeah.
Because obviously,
so just something like that, just something to just add a little bit of flavour to the terrain. I'd like to see.
I like both of those. What I was going to say is with the terrain thing, I know I think it was pre-COVID, and then COVID kind of put a stop to it. They were releasing sort of endless spells and terrain pieces per faction with each new faction release, alongside their new battle tome and a few models. I think purely because they obviously had production troubles around COVID times. Because obviously they got a lot of stuff from China. I believe their terrain is also mostly comes from China. So at least around that time it did. And now I know they've now got a new plant over in Nottingham again. They've opened up to satisfy that now post-COVID. But definitely pre-COVID they were doing a lot of that, and they haven't really brought it back. I've seen a lot of people saying they would like to kind of see the terrain come back per faction sort of thing, and I agree with you. If it could be a bit more narrative as well, I'd be more than up for that. I love the terrain pieces.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be too terribly complicated, just a little bit of flavour to encourage people to hold those terrain features or go for a, hold.
Because I love the engine.
If there's an objective in the game, go for it.
The Seraphon that I've got, the
World Shaper engine.
Yeah, fantastic piece to have as a centerpiece if you want it, and the options there. But yeah, and then what was your first one again, Si? Because you did both.
So something equivalent to the Combat Patrol, but for Vanguard.
So they've got
good ones.
So I only did one of mine, so I'll tell you what, I'll do both of mine. I'll let you guys do both of yours each as well. So because mine's close to yours, Si, first one, my second one. Which is to kind of expand on its Path to Glory for Age of Sigmar, is kind of their version of like Crusade.
Yeah.
But it's not as fleshed out as like Crusade now is for 40k. And I agree that it would be nice to sort of see it fleshed out. My sort of idea, and it probably wouldn't happen, but I think it would be viable, is to have some sort of subsection for Path to Glory on the Sigmar app, the app builder, where you could actually have like a conquest map, and you could enter it as part of GW's campaign that they're having going on.
Oh, so yeah, so you can see your progress.
And you can enter your game's results, whatever, post-proof or whatever you need to do, and then it progresses, and live on the app, around the world, whatever, you can see your faction and how they're doing. I just personally thought it would be kind of a cool thing that they could probably do, to get people engaged on the app. You could probably introduce premium features on there if they wanted to make another book out of it, and combine that with Path to Glory for a new edition. But I don't know what your guys' thoughts are on that.
Yeah, it could be cool.
Yeah.
I mean, you could even have it so that you can almost challenge other gamers around the world. It might not be your people who are in your local gaming group, but your old blood warlord might suddenly decide to go on. They have this particular section of a server or something, and you can go on and log your results on that section of the server, and chat, and hang out, and have a bit of trash talk against like a guy from, I don't know, like Japan or something, who's logging the results for his Ossiarch Bone Reaper kind of army or something, and then something kind of mighty rivalry happens. Even though neither of you play each other, you've got that kind of competitive side of it and community side of it.
And alongside with, like, because in 40k 40k codexes, you now have like the Crusade rule sections for your army, and you can kind of obviously like upgrade your base. You can like add stuff to all that. You could also, if you've bought the codex on the app, or Battle Tome in Sigmar's case, you could do all that stuff on the app as well, and that kind of adds to
the
bonuses
one
for
had
the
a lot of
conquest.
flavour for Crusade, didn't it?
Yeah, all that sort of stuff, and I think it'd be pretty cool, but.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I think with those, because they tried that with Leviathan recently, and and way back in the day with, I think it was Medusa 5 for 40k. And I've always wondered, one of the things they always struggle with global campaigns is they make it about one planet for the whole world, and everyone just smashes the results. If you could have a system where like your local club or a region could have like a unique code, and you fought over your own planet, and I think there'd be a lot more accountability and probably more realistic.
That's a good idea, Tom. I like that little addition.
Come together to conquer the sector or something like that.
Yeah,
GW, we're free if you want this idea. We'll come in. Yeah, wink, wink. Tom, you can give us both of yours. What you'd like to see.
Sure, I was leaning with Vanguard earlier because I do think they've really hit it well with Combat Patrol and 40k. So, but one of the things I also think they've done really well with 40k and 10th edition is the chapter approved mission system. I love that, and I know I'm very loath to suggest that Sigmar should be more like 40k, but I do like the way that those mission cards help to structure games and add more flavor and get you thinking about how to use your army a bit differently. So maybe not the same system, but kind of something in that vein would be really cool. Linking back to Path to Glory. My other one was actually Path to Glory campaigns like we're seeing with Crusade in 40k, because one of the things I don't like at the moment is how back heavy the campaign books are. with editions, or mainly Age of Sigmar. I mean, we've got 5 campaign books,
it's
like we did for Arcs of Omen in 40k, but it just feels like if they could tell the story more consistently through the next 3 years, I think that would give players a lot more opportunity to jump in, enjoy the story, make the most of all these different systems that Games Workshop creates, and then also maybe to kind of weave the model releases into that. I know the models obviously kind of dictate the release schedule more than anything else, but that's definitely something I want to see. And yeah, just a way to structure the games, and you could link it to terrain, you know, how to get people thinking about terrain differently. So yeah, but that said, they could probably improve on it and do it in a way that is definitely more Age of Sigmar than it is in 40k right now.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of funny, isn't it? You get like these new things added into each edition, and then the other game kind of takes from that and improves on it, or just completely scraps it and does a new thing. They just trial and error. So it'll be interesting to see what they do. I don't know about you, Tom, so it's interesting to kind of ask you before we go on to Ben's. Are you more narrative based, match play? What's your kind of... Or you
more friendly sort of match play stuff, but I do want to get more into the narrative stuff, because it seemed that, again, that you go through all the battle tomes and you see so much flavor there, and I feel like it feels to me like a waste for me not to use it. So my local Warhammer stores are doing more narrative events. They're going to do Path to Glory and sort of like New Year, New Army, but sort of a more regular quarter, Tale of Four Warlords sort of stuff. So I'd probably get more involved in that, because again, there's just so much there to play around with. But it feels like it doesn't get the love because it's not the game system that kind of gets sold a lot of the time.
Nice. Have you got any Sigmar armies then ready to go into new edition?
I've got my Stormcast army, but that might be getting updated because that's got the old style Liberators and things. But I am working on an Uruk Warclans army at the moment, so I've been swayed over by those new Ard boys, and I might get a war coming on.
Nice, so you'll all be ready then for the new edition.
Hopefully.
Hopefully, yeah. Ben, give us your 2 then.
Okay,
maybe so, crossover, may not be. I don't know. You have to surprise us.
No, there's no crossover with what's been. There's some awesome suggestions so far, and particularly the mission cards. Just briefly, it's one of the things I love about in multiple versions of 40k. They've had those kind of Tempest of War type cards, and it means that the game you play each time is different to the game before. You're not just playing. I love like fantasy and I love old world, but often it is line up on either side of the board. I don't want to play a complicated mission this week. Just do pitch battle. Yeah, let's just do pitch battle. You line up over there, I'll line up over here, and we'll smash together. You don't get that with the cards. You get kind of, oh yeah, I've got to do this. Oh, I've got to go do that. I've got to go over here now. And I'd love to see something like that for Age of Sigmar. It would be a really simple thing for Games Workshop to do for the next edition. And I agree with you. I would definitely buy a set if they could release those. That being said, my 2 suggestions for 4th edition. The first one was really... so I've got a whole bunch of different Age of Sigmar armies, and I like the kind of narrative theme you can weave through. Like I've got a Nurgle army, and it's got units of demons, it's got units of mortals, it's got Skaven Clan Pestilence units in there. And I love that you can add those in without having to use kind of your allied portion of the army, because they have that Nurgle keyword, and they have a kind of a shared connection with the Plague God. And likewise, I've got a Sylvaneth army, and I've got some like Dwarven Ironbreakers and stuff that I've converted up with kind of antlers and stuff to make them more kind of woodsy. And I wanted to do it as part of a whole living city army. And I love that you can do that with all the different kind of armies, except for Death, which are all just kind of their own thing. I've got a Nighthaunt army, which is just sat over here being ghosts. I've got a Soulblight army that just kind of sits over here being vampires. And I'd like it if there was the option for more kind of crossover, like if they were to go, oh, you know, this particular vampire order has connections with, you know, the Nighthaunt, and so you can have like a detachment of ghosts in your army, or this one, you know, the ones that are kind of tied to the Queen of Monsters. Imagine if she could have kind of some of Assurance children as part of the detachment, because all kind of the gribbly monstery beasts are welcome. That, I think, would be a really cool kind of extra addition that they could take that would balance the armies out a little bit, because it does feel sometimes like Death is kind of left out on its own a little bit compared to the love that some of the other factions get.
Not to cut you up there, Ben, but I was going to say they have, over the last edition or so, really separated Death out. Obviously, you don't really purely have the Legions of Nagash thing now, where you can sort of bring everything together. So I agree. It would be nice to see a bit more crossover to give you the choice at least.
And it would give you that kind of more narrative element to it again as well. Like, you know, this is Tempest Sire. They've got, you know, because they're on top of a mountain, they've got loads of Caradon that dock there. I'd like to see that. That's the first one.
Mm-hmm.
The second one is I want a new faction for destruction. Because you look at the other armies and like Order has a list. I could list it. They go off the screen. Yeah. I'm sure they'd probably add another. We're still waiting for them to add like Malekith's Shadow Ulgu elves in there, and we're still waiting for Tyrion's elves to join Technis's elves. So I'm sure there's yet more elves that are going to come out of the woodwork
as well.
The Kenothi haven't made an appearance yet, aside from the little bit that turned up in the Beastgrave box set, so they're still missing as well. There's loads and loads of Order stuff that they can do. Death has got at least 5 or 6 factions by this point. Chaos has got loads of them. All 4 Chaos Gods plus Beasts plus Skaven plus extra stuff on top of that as well. And Destruction, we're sat over here going, well, I've got Orcs, I've got smaller green things, I've got Ogres, and
a big mushroom.
Giants that have 2 kits. 2 kits that do an awful lot of work, but Behemat basically has 2 kits. I think it's got 3 kits now if you count King Brog as a separate kit, technically. But it's not really... You go, here is all this stuff you've got for Order. Here's all this stuff you've got for Chaos. And Destruction's kind of sat over here going, well, I mean, we've got some Orcs. They took away quite a few of our Orcs and gave them to the old world, so we've got less Orcs than we used to have.
Well, look, there were rumours with the last... I think it was the last edition, because a lot of people were thinking, and people are going to have to help me remind me the name of the faction now, that kind of come more under Destruction, and they've kind of got the hags in there and everything, and they were Forge World models. Vermeer, thanks, Ben.
So that's where I was going to go. I would like... People thought that's what we were getting in 3rd edition. When they saw all kind of the swamp orcs, the
savage orcs,
they thought, it's going to be Vermeer because Vermeer lived in swamps. Yes, everybody was convinced. Arbiter Ian did a whole 45-minute video about Vermeer that just nothing happened with it. But I would like to see Vermeer as a Destruction faction, but I would like to see them in particular as something completely different to what Destruction have at the moment. Because a lot of the Destruction stuff is, Destruction equals savages. And I would like to see them more like something like the Skeksis from Dark Crystal or something. Like have them being an organised, corruptive and despoiling force that, exploits and destroys the resources of the realms. So it's not chaotic. It's not a corruption in that way. It's a despoiling and wasting kind of element to it. But have them with big, huge hulking bodyguards like the beetle things, or have them with all kinds of little kind of weird, kind of twisted creatures that make it up, and give it a wholly new, completely different thing.
Like that's what Tyranids of AOS.
Yeah, that's it. No, that's it. Actually, that's pretty much it. But not bugs, not just bugs.
Well, that kind of sweeping, destroy everything and gobble everything, waste it. Suck the resources dry.
I do remember that banner. I remember people doing and I even did a short one myself before it came out, saying, it's got to be the Vermeer. It's all the swamp kind of things. Everybody's got their tinfoil hats on. It must be the Vermeer. No, it's the... Obviously, it turned out not to be. But they would probably have to change a lot of their background lore, because their original lore is... It's a bit, not very up-to-date kind of... what would you call it?
Not woke?
Yes. That's exactly what was the thing you'd probably say. So you might have to fiddle with that a little bit, but I like that, Ben.
But that's the benefit of Age of Sigmar. I think it's something that they can really kind of come into their own with now if they wanted to. Well, the Age of Sigmar for a long time was kind of just the carry-on from the old world. So a lot of the lore was the same lore you had from the old world. The ogres had to kind of make the ogre range from Warhammer from the old world fit in a new way. Yeah. And if you were to do a wholly new army, like they did with Caradons. I mean, Caradons are amazing. They are completely different to anything you've seen in kind of dwarves previously. Yeah. And to have a wholly new army for Destruction, I think, would be an ideal opportunity to just do something different.
Oh, look, a realm we didn't know about before. You could do it that way.
Yeah, they can easily do that sort of stuff, can't they? I'm sure they will at some point. Even if it might be 4th edition, we'll have to see. Alright guys, I think that's all 8 roughly that we've kind of come up with there. So let us know guys if you agree with any of us, if you're along the same sort of lines in the comments below. I really want to see your thoughts and what your ideas and what you'd like to see changed for 4th edition, or just new things added. Are there any factions that you guys would like to see added in or changed or anything like that? Thanks for watching this clip. Please do like, comment and subscribe to Morehammer here, and check out the full weekly Warhammer podcast that this clip came from right here. And as always, happy wargaming.